this afternoon. Before I welcome our Rector and Vice-Chancellor, Prof. Robert Balfour, to do the official welcome and opening remarks, we'd like to play a video entitled Pushing Change, Building Collaboration, a Dream Worth Having as a Scene Setter. Thank you. If we could have the video presentation.
Feel that the university has a moral responsibility to divest its funds from South Africa. The money that the university invests in corporations doing business in South Africa helps the apartheid system, the oppression of African people.
In 1985, 86, there were protests not only on the University of Missouri campus, but on campuses all across the United States. And these protests were against actually the South African government and trying to get the United States government to put additional pressure on the South African government because of its apartheid policies. So students were asking campuses to divest from investing in South Africa as a means to increase the international pressure on the South African government.
When Peter McGraw arrived as the president of the University of Missouri System, at that inaugural event, the protesters lined Jesse Auditorium. There was a party afterward on the Francis Quadrangle with white tents and all that. And the protesters came out to the quadrangle and basically took over the reception. Peter agreed that day to set up a commission to study the investment policy. The next week, the university established a task force to study its investment policy vis-a-vis South Africa. We recommended that the university divest. And we also said that if the university this university wants to have an impact in South Africa, we should do what we do best, which is not making symbolic economic decisions for the right reason, but to engage in education.
Tonight, I grasp that hand firmly and warmly and express the hope that in taking this small step for two institutions, we shall also take a giant stride in the cause of education.
We believe that in doing this, we're doing that for the future and change South Africa in trying to provide the leadership and the trained manpower for that changed, non-racial, democratic South Africa, which people, including our university, are striving for.
I recall in the early days, folks at UWC didn't know where Missouri was. And if they did, they thought of Missouri as some, ultra-conservative hick college out in the middle of nowhere.
People from UWC say, we didn't know what was up with these people from Missouri and why they wanted to partner up with us.
So when we showed up, we were very serious and we were very humble. They all said, well, Missouri is the one, these people are serious.
We weren't there doing favors for the University of the Western Cape. We were there to enrich the experience and the professional development and growth of our faculty and our students at a time and in a place where most others either couldn't go or wouldn't go.
On a day, Owen and I and Jan and others might be ducking under trees or whatever else other cover there is for us as the tear gas and the rubber bullets and everything can rain onto the university. But you've packed your bags because that night you're going to fly from that space with all of that turmoil to this place called the University of Missouri, and you're going to be a professor. And so you never lose your understanding of what you are, of what that university is. You don't give it over to struggle that is meaningless The struggle is a struggle, not just with respect to how do you force the other to give you a freedom, but how do we equip ourselves to be able to deal with that freedom?
This relationship started primarily focused on faculty exchanges. So for much of the past 30 years, the emphasis has been on faculty collaborations. How can we help each other learn to teach better? What kind of innovative teaching ideas can we share with each other?
And somehow it worked, even though they were 8,000 miles away, even though they had no experience working internationally with other universities. There we were, and there they were, trying to create protocols and trying to create systems through which we could work together.
I remember, arriving there and walking across the campus with a University of Missouri colleague and greeting people who I had already met, South Africa, UWC faculty who I had already met here in Missouri in the early years of the relationship. The level of engagement was already strong enough and meaningful enough that I could encounter so many familiar faces very far away from home. And I thought, well, we've already done something.
This partnership, which has enabled more than 600 staff members from both sides to go for visits, has played a fundamental role in the capacity development at the University of the Western Cape, to the point that in the last 15 years, UWC has made such great strides as a research-intensive university that in the year 2015, a ranking undertaken by the Times Higher Education placed UWC 7th on the African continent and 5th in South Africa. And the foundation for UWC's rise as an institution where serious scholarship was generated, that foundation was laid by the partnership with the University of Missouri.
What this partnership represents is an opportunity to think ahead, to think beyond the limits and constraints of what we've inherited from the past. Now, in our case, it's thinking beyond apartheid and thinking beyond the limits of a racial project that sought to put people in their place and keep them there. And this partnership is an opportunity to think our way out of that predicament, to think our way into a space where we affirm knowledge as a project worth thinking about and worth working with, but also about what the emancipatory potential of knowledge might represent.
It's gone from faculty research collaborations to some teaching to also some student exchanges and collaborations. It's grown into a fairly comprehensive program of developing new ideas for both universities.
Since 2006, we've made significant progress in opening up more study abroad opportunities for University of Missouri students to go to South Africa. And I think this is an area that I think we can continue to grow in because it provides such a rich experience for our students.
Sure, for the students and for the younger faculty members who had not had that kind of international experience, it was eye-opening, and it's nice to have your eyes opened by people of color.
There is a facility there called the Mayabuya Archives, and the Mayabuya Archives are essentially the archives of apartheid. So everything for the almost 40 to 50 years of apartheid is kept there. The newspapers, the cartoons that were done, the audio, the video, the personal papers of people like Mandela and Tutu. And so that's what we're doing, is we're telling those stories. We're telling them in a journalistic style.
My vision is one of alliances between North and South, between North, South, and East. And we're already talking to one of our partners in Belgium to see if we can have a trilateral alliance. Alliance means that we have common goals, we have a common vision, and we draw on the strengths of our respective institutions to make those goals a reality.
The fact that this relationship has endured for 30 years when there have been changes in leadership, both at the University of Western Cape, at the University of Missouri. We've had different presidents, lots of different chancellors, and yet there has been a continued sustained willingness to participate in this partnership.
There have been so many accomplishments, whether you think in terms of individual partnerships or institution-to-institution partnerships. I mean, let me put it this way. More UMSL faculty members have visited the University of the Western Cape than any other university in the world. Now, that's not to be assumed.
It isn't easy. The distances, the logistics are not easy, but somehow we made it work. And it's still working, and it'll probably work for another 30 or 40 years.
With the passion that they show, with the commitment that they show, I have no doubt, well after I'm retired, this partnership is going to go to great heights.
I think we're doing quite well, all because of those student protests back in 1985, 86.
We started very, very small. We started with two very unequal institutions, and look where we are today. So it's a dream worth having.
And I just want to say to this university, thank you very much for your commitment to the kinds of things that the University of the Western Cape has had to be doing. It is a university where students have often had to be disturbed by the whiffs of tear gas coming through their lecture windows. It's been a university which has been the site of the struggle for a new kind of South Africa. And the association that it has with this institution will do a great deal to improve the contribution that UWC is going to be making to the new South Africa. Thank you for all the good that is accruing to us as a result of this relationship that has been forged between our university and yours. Of course, now I can say between my university in South Africa and my university in Kansas City.
Distinguished colleagues, just a brief on how the program will unfold going forward. We welcome opening remarks from Rector and Vice Chancellor, Professor Robert Balfour, Mr. Todd Graves, Chair of the Board of Curators of the University of Missouri, and President Mun Choi, University of Missouri. I now welcome Professor Robert Balfour to the podium.
Thank you very much, Dr. Singh, for the introduction and also for the video that played by way of orienting us this afternoon to this momentous gathering. It's a happy day in a university's life when we can celebrate a relationship that has been as long as it is deep, with so many, many people who have benefited from it across our hemispheres, and the collaborations that have arisen from it continue to unfold in our respective spaces to make not only the day a momentous and historical day for us, but also a deeply affirmative moment in the importance of relationship across our humanity. President Mun Choi, President of the University of Missouri, members of the University of Missouri delegation, Chairperson of the Curators, Mr. Graves, Professor Tyrone Pretorius, our former Rector and Vice Chancellor of the University of the Western Cape, Professor Harold Herman, the former Dean of the Faculty of Education at UWC, Professor Rod Uphoff, Director of the University of Missouri South African Education Program, Judge L.B. Sachs and Vanessa Sachs, U.S. diplomatic officials, Dr. David Young, former US Ambassador to Zambia and Malawi, Mr. Samuel Werberg and Mr. Stephen Valen from the US Consulate, members of the university's executive, deans of faculties gathered in our audience, colleagues, students, alumni, program participants, and all our distinguished guests, very special persons from our past as the University of the Western Cape, Mrs. Gerwel, Mrs. O'Connell are gathered with us this afternoon. Many special persons who have participated in collaborations are among us this afternoon and who bear testimony to the wonderful fruits of this deeply human collaboration, this collaboration which I dare say has lasted longer than many marriages, although let me not be quoted on that. But it does feel like that kind of occasion where we are celebrating how much we mean to each other as institutions and how deeply we value President Troy in going on with this relationship, the commitment made. I want also to acknowledge persons who are not with us this afternoon, but who made an insurmountable contribution in terms of the former leadership of the University of the Western Cape in the persons of Professors Richard van der Ross, Professors Jake Gerwel, Professor Jaap Durant, Jan Persons, and Brian O'Connell, who with Mrs. Gerwel and Mrs. O'Connell are with us in spirit today. What a momentous in spiritual communion, so to speak, that brings us together in the form of this anniversary, the special alliance, as Prof had mentioned earlier, Prof Tyron. Of course, it's a huge pleasure for me as a newcomer to UWC to also welcome you and to be steeped in the deep history of this institution committed to the struggle for freedom and equality that makes special sense to me as a leader in ways that I cannot begin to explain. Need another conversation and a glass of wine, I think, or two to get into that. But what we do want to acknowledge is that the opportunities for growth on both sides of our oceans have encouraged an institution to grow on both sides of our oceans across 4 whole decades. And I do believe that there is no more effective a way for people to work together than through institutions. Institutions bring together humanity in an organizational form devoted to particular purposes and foci across a period of time that extend well beyond the lives of those of us who have gathered here this afternoon. Institutions like universities, which are devoted to learning, devoted to research, are a special place. And the value of the collaboration, not only in terms of goodwill and every bit of hard work that has built the edifice of this partnership over time, but also the values that bring us together, that make partnership possible, that make an institutional form alive among us. 40 years of partnership is captured in our program today, and I'm so looking forward to listening to those of you who have lived through the beginnings of the partnership, who have contributed to it over time and have made its purpose clear to those of us who have come newly into it, among whom I count myself. Today asks us to look back in history, not only to listen to those who have helped build, but to dream with those who have ideas about the future of the partnership. And it's so important that we have Missouri colleagues with us in our audience and members of our community from UWC in our audience to converse about this opportunity for the future that lies together and the richness of the past. Over the years, the partnership has shown in practical ways what strong international academic relationship can look like. I do think this is exemplary. This is an exemplary partnership. Many students have come through it, which is testimony to the strength of the partnership. Many parts of the universities have been strengthened through it. So it's not only about the individuals and staff and student exchanges, but also the joint effort, the joint commitment, the values we share. And that has extended, I believe, into our community engagement. Universities are not ivory towers or singular institutions in their own right. Everything we do here together ultimately makes a difference in the millions of people who live around and with us as an institution. So we should never underestimate what partnership means in terms of only the particular academic disciplines we've championed, for example, but the many deeply human experiences that have been shared as a result of being together and which continue to make an impact on the people around us as well. This gives real substance, I think, to why we are here today. What stands out for me is that a partnership like this can still make a difference. After 40 years, we don't feel tired. We feel energized. That's never possible in the space of any one human life. I think the older one becomes, the less perhaps energetic you get. But a partnership like this brings younger and older people across generations into its space. And that's what I mean by saying it is the commitment to an institutional form that brings out the best in our human effectiveness as people. We endure because of continuity. Our partnership endures because of a sense of purpose. And for me, this is one of the clearest lessons from the work that you have all done, that we have all done. It's practical, it's institutional, it is also visionary, and it has a deeply human and spiritual dimension to it. We open space not only for new work in research and education, we support an alliance of value systems across the world. The implications for leadership at UWC is also strong. I think that this partnership has deepened the experience of leadership at UWC. And as I said to our colleagues from Missouri yesterday, you help us dream about what we would still like to become. The 40th anniversary is therefore an opportunity to express our gratitude. It gives us a chance, President Choi, to acknowledge the many people who have carried this partnership over the years, and it includes our program directors who are in our audience as well. We recognize the work doesn't end here. I'm looking forward to the roundtable discussions and the points of view to be shared by colleagues as they give valuable time for us to look back and to look forward, so part of what it means to be a member of UWC. On behalf of the University of the Western Cape, thank you to all our colleagues online as well as present, to everybody from the University of Missouri and our community here for taking the time to make meaningful the discussion about what it is we have been busy with, what it is we would still like to do, and the value of association. May this special anniversary, the special commemoration, acknowledge what has been built in dignity over many years through hard work and sometimes struggle. May it recognize not only what has been made possible, but who has made it possible, and may it encourage us, indeed inspire us to work together. Thank you so much.
Our next distinguished guest is Mr. Todd Graves, who was appointed to the University of Missouri Board of Curators in 2021 by Governor Mike Parson. Mr. Graves is a lawyer in private practice with the law firms of Graves Garrett. He represents clients nationwide before federal and state courts and administrative agencies. Mr. Graves served previously as the United States Attorney for the Western District of Missouri. I welcome Mr. Graves.
What an honor it is for me to be here. As you know, it's obvious I'm from the state of Missouri. And what is Missouri? Missouri is a state, and we, the University of Missouri, are its flagship university. We're middle America. If you look at the map of the continental United States, the 48 states contiguous, we're the very center of that map. And Columbia, where our flagship is based, is the center of the center. It's Middle America. In fact, we're within an hour of what is actually the population center of the country. There's as many people north, south, east, and west. So that's who we are. And this partnership enriches us in so many ways. So many of the folks who are active in the University of Missouri are from all parts of the state. I'm from probably one of the most rural parts of the state in the very corner, 4 hours from the university. And because of my affiliation with the university, I'm standing in a room like this, meeting so many interesting people like you. We're stubborn and loyal as a people. Many years ago, we were called the Show Me State because we won't believe you until you show us. We're the Show Me State. And I can tell you that this partnership, a little closer, this partnership has shown us 40 years. It's been incredibly enriching for the university, both for our faculty members and others that we send here and those that have come to the university. We educate primarily people from our region, and this allows us, not only our world-class research that we do and we send into the world, this allows us to send our people into the world and to bring people to meet others. 40 years ago, I was actually a student at the University of Missouri when all of this took place. So this is particularly poignant for me. And being loyal, we're committed to this partnership. 40 years is a long time. We've had a partnership with South Korea for 70 years, and we're committed to both of those partnerships. So we appreciate you as a partner. UWC is our partner. We've seen it. You've shown us, we believe in it, and we certainly appreciate you inviting us here this week and appreciate your time. Thank you.
And now we introduce President Professor Mun Choi, who serves as the 24th President of the University of Missouri, a dual role as Chancellor of the University of Missouri and the President of the University of Missouri System. In this role, Prof. Choi oversees the academic, business, and financial aspects of the 4 universities, as well as healthcare system and sustainable extension program. In partnership with the University of Missouri Board of Curators and University leadership, President Choi introduced a new collective vision system-wide shortly after he arrived in Columbia to advance the opportunities for success and well-being in Missouri, the nation, and the world through transformative teaching, research, innovation, engagement, and inclusion. I welcome President Choi.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, everyone. It is always wonderful to come back to Cape Town and the University of Western Cape. This is my 3rd visit, and I have to say, each time I am more hopeful. I am more excited about the opportunities for us to work together. And I want to thank our board chair for making this trip, along with his wife, Tracy Graves, and for demonstrating your strong support for meaningful partnerships like this. So thank you. Yes, you can go ahead and clap. And to the warm welcome that we received from Rector Robert Balfour. We look forward to the next decade of strong partnership under your leadership. And I want to thank Dr. Tasmira Singh and Mr. Jordan King for arranging just a truly spectacular, tiring, but spectacular program for all of us, and we really appreciate you. Also, I want to recognize all of our colleagues at the University of Missouri System, all 4 universities. Many of them got up very early to join us for this event, and they are online. I want to give a brief presentation of how we arrived at this point and what I see as tremendous opportunities for continued growth. And this is not working, so next slide, please. C. Peter McGraw was the president that started in the fall of 1985. And During that period of his beginning, there were protests, as you saw in the video. Now, some university leaders would have said, well, these are just students protesting. It's about a matter that is 8,000 miles away. What does it have to do with us? He spoke with the board, and the board, together with the president, decided to launch a task force to understand how we can address the issues that were brought to the surface by our students. And beginning in early 1986, along with Ron Turner, who served as executive vice president, who is watching this online in Columbia, Missouri, working with important leaders like Rector Hervel and Jens Persons, developed a framework of a partnership. Now, if you go back in time to the late 70s and early 80s to mid 80s, there were about 200 universities in the United States that decided to divest from companies that did business in South Africa. In fact, the year that the University of Missouri decided to divest, in 1986, the University of California system divested as well. And I'm not going to fault any universities for doing what they did or didn't do. But instead of just seeking out a symbolic divestment, they try to find ways, the president and the board, to help deepen the relationships of the state of Missouri and South Africa through University of Western Cape. And we are all the beneficiaries of that foresight 40 years ago. Next slide, please. So in 1986, there was a formal signing of the Declaration of a Partnership. And I understand from meeting with Mrs. Hervel today, who is sitting right over there, she visited with the rector in 1986 to Columbia, Missouri. And we thank you for making that incredible visit. And through the years, there have been many developments, including faculty exchanges that have led to meaningful research that benefited both organizations. And in 1986, the person that started the partnership at the University of Missouri side was Dr. Ron Turner. And he served in that role for 20 years. And in 2006, Mr. Radopov took on that role. So he's been serving in that role for 20 years. And the reason that this partnership has been so successful from the University of Missouri side is because we have Radopov and Ron Turner that marshaled university resources to ensure that there were meaningful partnerships that were developed. And now, working with Dr. Tasmira Singh and previously with Dr. Umesh Bawa, we have ensured that this partnership has the foundation for us to continue. Next slide, please. I never had a chance to meet Rector Brian O'Connell, but during my last visit 2 years ago, he unexpectedly passed away. And that's when I had a chance to meet the family. And I understand that I saw Mrs. O'Connell here today. Mrs. O'Connell, where are you sitting? Thank you. Thank you for your many contributions to this partnership. He was truly a visionary leader. And after Rector O'Connell, we had the pleasure of working with Dr. Tyrone Pretorius, who has become a very, very good friend to me personally, but also an incredible friend to the University of Missouri system. And through his activities, we now have partnerships in areas that go beyond the traditional areas of agriculture, plant sciences, to now innovation and social work. And so we're very pleased with that. Thank you. Next slide. So over the past 40 years, when I share this fact that we've had over 1,000 faculty exchanges with an institution, our partners in other parts of the world are surprised because that's meaningful. Those partnerships are not visits to just give seminars. These are partnerships where our faculty members come to UWC to learn about the most innovative technologies, using appropriate technologies here, and vice versa. And in the process, educating students they're going to come back with their entire perspective of the world changed because of that incredible investment of time and resources for that type of partnership to continue. We've also had great success in encouraging donors from South Africa and donors from the United States that see value in this international collaboration that's meaningful. And the most important donor that we have is Mr. Fred White, who attended the University of Missouri and attended the law school, who just provided very recently a $1 million endowment to have UWC students to come to the University of Missouri and learn about what we do best in the law school, and that is conflict resolution. Over the past just 4 years, in that 4 years' time, we've had PhD students from UWC come to our university, work with our faculty, jointly with UWC faculty, to gain that research experience that they bring back to this incredible institution. Next slide. Here is a slide that shows our professor, David Mendoza Cozado, who is in the Plant Sciences Department. He's collaborated with Professor Marshall Keister. Is Professor Keister here today? Professor Keister, thank you. Professor Keister, you visited the University of Missouri. How many times? 6 times. And we look forward to hosting you again when you come back to Columbia, Missouri. And through this partnership that began over 11 years ago, they've received U.S. Department of Agriculture grant to support this work. And our goal is to seek both federal grants as well as foundation grants to be able to continue these partnerships that are so meaningful, right, for agriculture in both countries. Also, we have with us, I just learned today, from University of Missouri St. Louis, Professor Alina Slappak works closely with Professor Karen Collett. If I can ask the two of you to stand. And Professor Slappak from UMSO is wearing the green right there, so you know who she is. And together, they've trained over 1,000 students in collaborative education. So thank you for your partnership that is meaningful. Next slide. Here are 2 students. One is a student from UWC, and that is Terchlin Jefta, and I don't believe she's here. She's not here? Okay. And the other student is Jasmine Marie Godwin, who is an American student who came to UWC through the Henry Mitchell Scholarship. Based on that experience, she wrote a proposal with her advisor, Dr. Antoinette Landor at the University of Missouri, and she received one of the most prestigious graduate fellowships in the United States that is awarded by the National Science Foundation. And Terchlin is now a Fulbright scholar working towards her PhD at UMKC. So this is really a partnership that involves all 4 of our universities. I'm going to talk about the partnership at Missouri S&T at Rolla. Next slide. Oh, here it is. So at the University of Missouri, at Missouri University of Science and Technology, which is our premier engineering university and science university that is about 90 minutes south of Columbia, Missouri, they have a strong emphasis on mining and critical minerals. And we have Dr. I'm going to do this, Ola Renraju Fatoba, who is conducted joint PhD work with Dr. Ofe at Missouri S&T. And Dr. Ofe is the PI of a $60 million proposal from the US government to make Missouri S&T the epicenter for critical minerals mining and critical minerals replacement. And together they are now working on joint projects that will be at the forefront of this very important work because critical minerals are so important for semiconductor and advanced manufacturing, for batteries, AI chips, and so forth. Next slide. So in closing, we've had 40 years of a successful partnership. And as Rector Balfour stated, we're still energized. We're still excited. There's so much more to do. Every time I come here and see the work that the students do, as I shared before, it gives me hope and gives me great excitement. And as I was sitting around listening to the faculty and students describe their work, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, how do I find funding for this work? Which foundation, which government agency, which donor can fund this important work that we need to sustain to bring our two countries together and benefit us tremendously in the state of Missouri? So thank you very much for your attention. I look forward to a wonderful day of new discoveries at UWC. Thank you.
So we now move on into the depth and the history of the partnership. And we have a presentation by Professor Tyrone Pretorius, the former rector and vice chancellor of UWC, and I believe the first UMSA participant, followed by Professor Harold Herman, the former dean of the Faculty of Education, UWC, and lastly by Prof. Rod Uphoff, the director of the University of Missouri SA program. So in that order, please. Thank you.
Prof. Balfour, Prof. Balfour, Prof. Munchoy, thanks for inviting me and to share some of my reflections. I'm so pleased to see Phoebe here today. Her husband played a very, very instrumental role in my life. Sorry? Yeah. I was reminded today that I'm no longer the Vice Chancellor. My presentation was supposed to be 5 minutes, and then I negotiated for 10 minutes. Unfortunately, I can't squeeze more than 30 years into 10 minutes. And so the new director that I only met today asked me how long my presentation is, and I said, I'll try and do it in 15 minutes. And she rolled her eyes at me. He says, no, that's not acceptable. I was asked to speak more on my personal experiences with the University of Missouri system. But in reflecting on this, I thought I wanted to start at the end, where this partnership is now. You heard me saying in that video clip that I feel very strongly about alliances, north, south, east, and west. And in that vein, I want to start with the relationship between Missouri and UWC that is 40 years this year. And we've had a long-standing relationship with Ken, largely because of investment by the Flemish government to the project called Building a Better Society. And I had this dream of starting a trilateral relationship, drawing on the strengths of the three institutions. And we called it the Tricontinental Partnership. But being a university, we wanted an acronym, so we call it the 3CP. I was going to speak about it, but after the director's intervention, I'm just going to show the images. President Munchoy joined us in 2017 as the chancellor of the University of Missouri in Columbia. There was talk at one time, I think it was around 20, Louise, 20, talk about VUB joining the trilateral, because it could still be a trilateral, even if it have
even if it has 4 members. And that was when the late Carolina Pauwels was still the rector of Vrije Universiteit Brussels. Unfortunately, after her passing, we didn't pursue this any further. But Prof. Balfour, I think it is probably a conversation that you and and President Moon Choi could have with the new leadership at VUB. Just some more activities, especially during COVID, when we wanted to deepen the partnership and the alliance, and we wanted to avoid the isolation, COVID. I'm scrolling as fast as I can. The Precision Medicine Conference that President Choi referred to. We started quarterly leadership conversations during COVID, where we could share best practices between the 3 institutions. But here my real story starts. Can you move the video to the other side? There we go. I vividly remember in the 80s, very, very active democratic participation in decision-making. Jakes Gerwel advocated that staff members at all levels should be involved in decision-making, and they did not take decisions at leadership level without thorough consultation. And so he asked Ron Turner and Henry Mitchell to go and make the case to the staff at UWC. In one of our bigger lecture halls, B1 at that time, and I vividly remember Ron Turner and Henry Mitchell having to answer complicated and sometimes aggressive questions about what is your real intent? Why should we entertain the idea of an American university investing in South Africa at a time when there were no such relationships encouraged by the progressive movements? I remember 2 colleagues in particular that at the time were activist scholars, Ivan Evans and Yvonne Moutin, who came from the sociology department, and I remember them leading the charge against Ron Turner and Henry Mitchell. The arguments advanced by Ron and Henry and strengthened by Jakes won the day. And in 1989, or prior to 1989, 1986 to 1989, Jakes Gerwel was very strategic about what he wanted to achieve. And he very deliberately encouraged young colleagues busy with their master's degrees or busy with their PhDs. He encouraged them to take up this opportunity. He made Owen van der Berg, who was a former dean of education, and eventually I think he landed at University of Missouri in St. Louis. He was a professor in education there. Yeah. He made Owen the chair of the Missouri committee at UWC. I was busy with my PhD at the time. There were not many PhDs in the 80s. At my graduation, I was the only doctoral graduate. But Owen van der Berg approached me and he said, I really think you should take this opportunity to broaden your mind. Now, I had never been overseas. I've never been on an airplane before then. So I flew via Amsterdam, and there you can see me in, those of you that saw Joe Barber and Washila, what Washila called, there am I in my brown leather jacket, having my first Indonesian rice table in Amsterdam. I quickly learned independence on the strip because I was told beforehand, get your international driving license. No one is coming to fetch you at the airport. We're going to rent a car for you that you must pick up in St. Louis, and you must drive to Colombia. The bravado of the young. I came out of that St. Louis airport, and the Americans will tell you what that airport looks like. The highways and the freeways, when you come out, I was totally lost. I went, what was supposed to be an on-ramp, I made it an off-ramp. My host in Missouri, Columbia was Joe Johnson. He was head of career counseling. On the left, at the time, I really believed and I aspired to make career counseling my discipline of choice. I believe that is what I should be doing. So I was based at the Center for Career Counseling, and in that center, a very senior colleague, Mary Hepner, was also in that center. And she must have felt sorry for me because one day, she invited me to dinner with her and her husband, Punky Hepner. I always tease Punky about this. He never writes under his Punky P. Hepner. He writes P. Paul Hepner because his mother and father called him Punky. Anyway, this was a relationship that, and I don't say this lightly, this was a relationship that changed my scholarly trajectory. I didn't know at the time, but Punky was a very well-recognized psychologist in the United States. In fact, he was the editor of one of the most significant psychology journals called The Counseling Psychology. This was an article written in 2021 after he had retired, and the article basically celebrates his career and influence as a psychologist. In 1989, I was very, very young. And to cross paths with a psychologist like Punky changed my life forever. Punky was most well known for his theory of problem-solving appraisal. In this theory, he says, it's not your actual problem-solving skills that matters. It is whether you perceive yourself to be an effective problem solver. It's a theory of appraisal that impacts mental health. And over many years, his research has demonstrated that the way in which you perceive your problem-solving skills influences your mental health. And so he developed this problem-solving inventory as a way to measure problem-solving appraisal. And that influenced the direction of my scholarly journey. And I became interested in differential vulnerability. Why do some people, when faced with adverse events or stressful experience, why do they succumb and develop mental health, negative mental health? And others faced with the very same adverse events do not. So that for me was the mystery of differential vulnerability. I started with Punky's problem-solving appraisal. I did publish some papers on it. And here in the lower left, right-hand corner is a paper that I published together with Punky and one of his colleagues at the University of Missouri, Columbia. I quickly moved on to other, 1 minute, okay. I quickly moved on to other other protective factors, appraisals of safety, sense of coherence. A very interesting one on the right here is a study conducted with UWC colleagues, and it was whether participation in decision-making actually influences the relationship between stress and burnout. And in 2023, I came full circle. I approached Punky, who was deep in retirement and really not into publishing anymore. I approached him and I said, let's revise your problem-solving instrument using statistical methods. And in 2025, I stepped down in 2024, retired. In 2025, I finally had enough time to read the thousands of papers that use the problem-solving inventory, and I did a synthesis of what the literature says about the relationship between problem-solving appraisal and suicide ideation. And the results show that the relationship is quite substantial. My conclusion and my takeaway, based on my own journey, is that deep institution-to-institution partnership matters, and that they do make a difference. Sorry if I went too much over time. Thank you.
You've taken up most of my time. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Harold Herman. I used to be the Dean of Education here. And I'm blessed to be the longest living graduate of this university who is still serving at the university as an emeritus professor. Now, Tyrone Pretorius has just stolen half my time, if not 3/4. So I decided I'll try to be slightly different. We've had so many visual presentations. I am a teacher, and as Dick van der Ros used to say, we talk till the bell rings. So you can imagine the problem I now have. So what I'm going to do is I presented at the 20th anniversary celebration in 2006. I represented UWC at the gathering at Umsal. And believe it or not, I was the only one who had a written paper. I want just to remind the Missouri colleagues that when we come from here, we bring our papers with us. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read you quickly excerpts from the first 20 years. And being the elder in the audience here, I suppose it's understandable that I would talk about the first 20 years. It has been my pleasure to be involved in the University of the Western Cape Missouri Collaboration and Academic Exchange Program since its inception in 1986. I was part of a delegation, a UWC delegation, under the leadership of Vice Chancellor Richard van der Ros, who met with our University of Missouri counterparts in 1986 to consider the possibilities of a collaboration between our two universities. UM was represented by its retired president, Dr. Bryce Ratchford, and he was mindful of the struggles for democracy in South Africa and the cry for an academic boycott of South Africa because of its apartheid policies. I'm talking in terms of South Africans going overseas. With UWC in the forefront of the liberation struggles in higher education, it was the choice of the institution for to link with and meaningfully contribute to the freedom struggle in South Africa. During our meetings, issues relating to the linkage being a vehicle for progressive change in higher education was debated and resolved, leading to the final memorandum of understanding between our two institutions. I think the things you've heard before me clearly illustrate that. I was going to elaborate on that, but it has already been said. The University of Missouri was under pressure from its student body to take a stand against apartheid in South Africa, and I witnessed this in my many photographs I saw of student protests and the erection of squatter shacks on the Columbia campus. It was visually shown here today. The relationship started in a time of great tension and continuous protest on the UWC campus. As Dean of Education, my window was the closest to Motterdam Road, which was the main entrance. And you can imagine how many times I had to duck the rubber bullets and tear gas canisters that were flying into the building as the students were protesting towards the gate. So it was a hectic time. The relationship started in a time of great tension and protests on the UWC campus. I vividly remember a seminar on grant writing arranged by Ron Turner in the Education A Block lecture hall, with student chants and marches all around, not protesting over our presence, but one or other political issue of the late 1980s. As Dean of Education, I felt somewhat uncomfortable about subjecting our Missouri visitors to such conflict and tension. But I really admired Ron and the other Missouri colleagues for their understanding of the student unrest, the calmness and solidarity they displayed as they learned more about our liberation struggle. One of the great advantages of our university link for the Missouri partners, I felt, was the experience of a country and a campus in transition to a new democratic order and a discourse of struggle, ideological fervor, and rapid transformation of a society. The Faculty of Education was always heavily involved in the Missouri link, and we benefited enormously from the experience. Owen van der Berg, whom Tyron referred to, my predecessor as Dean, did excellent work in setting up the Exchange and the International Relations Office at UWC. At the Missouri end, Ron Turner was a tower of strength. His enormous commitment to our project and his funding will always be remembered. His managerial skills were complemented by his enduring interest in storytelling. The storytelling brought the academic exchange in a wonderful way to the grassroots civil society level of people-to-people interaction. My interest in comparative international development education always kept me close to the link. I served on our UWC Senate Relations Committee for a long time, and it was my privilege to chair the committee for a number of years in the 1990s. By golly, those thick wad of applications, 10 or 20 of them from UWC. And then, of course, we had to respond to the ones coming from Missouri to decide who are the lucky ones who will be part of the exchange. A highlight of my first visit to Missouri was the time I spent with Irwin Epstein, a renowned scholar in my field, who was then the editor of the leading journal in comparative and international education in the USA, Comparative Education Review. That was my visit to Roller, which most people don't visit because it's an engineering campus. So I spent time with him and Barbara and his wife and attended her classes at high school in Roller, gave a few science lectures. I used to be a science teacher, and I was amazed at the excitement of the pupils as they listened to me talking about distant South Africa. They were buzzing with glee when I gave them a few South African rand notes and coins. Meeting people from across the oceans can be such an exciting experience. With the small, sleepy town of Roller, I realized just how small our world is. A professor at Roller campus invited me, a professor of philosophy, to address the community forum one evening when I was there in 1990. Now, I'm going to abbreviate this. There I met a retired South African doctor who was coming to live with his son, who probably farmed in the Rolla area. Isn't much else you can do there. And he started, when I started giving my analysis of the politics and education of South Africa, he started attacking me from the floor because he was obviously a conservative white South African who has tried his best to escape and landed up of all places in Rolla, Missouri. Well, I can assure you the audience was on my side. He had no chance. So that was just one of my experiences. The visit to the 4 campuses had many interesting moments. At Kansas City, I got heavily involved in the debates on educational inequality and the magnet schools of the 1990s. When I returned there in 2000, the magnet schools were replaced by charter schools as the flavor of the day. I was amazed to see how the levels of educational deprivation were as disturbing in the inner city district of Kansas City as in South Africa. When I visited Kansas City in 2000, the inner city school district failed the statutory state education assessment on all 11 criteria used. For those of us in the field of School of Leadership in South Africa and Missouri, these issues provided fruitful academic debates and the exploration of programs which could benefit our disadvantaged schools. One of the fond memories of my Kansas City visit was the time I spent with Vice Chancellor, the late Dr. Henry Mitchell. You saw a lot about him in the earlier presentations. Henry was a wonderful, cheerful person with whom we had fascinating discussions. He related the story to me how, when he first visited UWC, he thought it would be appropriate to bring the pride of Midwest barbecue sauces, a whole box of it, to Cape Town to share with us. He was, of course, highly embarrassed when he saw the sophistication of our local braaivleis barbecue and realized that he was bringing coals to Newcastle. A highlight of the UWC exchange was undoubtedly the Tertiary Education Linkage Program, TELP, funded by USAID, where our 2 institutions were major participants. We had 9 projects across faculties for us in education. A major spin-off was the Leadership Academy project, which we developed over 4 years between 2001 and 2005. My key consultants in Missouri were at UMSL, and I'm very upset that UMSL's education campus has been closed. I believe it's being rebuilt somewhere else. And there with Dr. Carol Murphy and Dr. Doug Miller of DESI, that's the education department. This led to reciprocal visits, a number of publications, and a funding proposal for a leadership academy for Western Cape school principals. Another highlight in the history of the exchange was the Global Citizens Award made to our Chancellor, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, by the University of Missouri at a glittering function in St. Louis in March 2000. And I was again lucky to be the South African participant from the university. The Archbishop was in top form, as you saw on the screen, and was warmly applauded by a huge audience. The awards ceremony was a classy affair, preceded by a symposium where a number of us reflected on the exchange and its future. To me, as a South African education, and Tyron, please, I got my PhD before you. You were mentioning that early on in your speech. I was a Fulbright scholar in Florida in 1980, doing my PhD. And it'll always bring fond memories, this exchange. The enthusiasm and support of people such as Ron Turner, Carol Murphy, Joel Glassman, whom you saw on screen, Doug Miller, who was from the education department, the head of human resources, and many others, will always bring fond memories at home The leadership of Jan Persens, our Senate International Relations Committee, and our colleagues has led to the many successes of the exchange. It is my wish that this collaboration continue to strive to improve higher education in our two countries by developing solid projects which can impact meaningfully on our society in the 21st century. Lastly, I just want to mention that in 2016, I was privileged to coordinate the visit of 10 to 12 Missouri Columbia journalism students with their professor, Professor Smith. And it was a wonderful occasion for these young people. And it continued for 4 years. And I was reading in my file the comments of those students in letters they sent to me. And I did it with tears in my eyes because they were so happy. And I think things like those are really great projects of great value for both sides, South Africa and Missouri. And I hope that this project will continue for many years to come. Thank you.
You always have to worry when a lawyer pulls out a yellow pad. So I was only supposed to have 5 minutes, and everyone who knows me knows it's impossible for me only to speak for 5 minutes. Okay, we'll see how I can do. So lots of people ask me, both at UWC and the University of Missouri, how can this partnership continue for 40 years? What is it? What makes it happen? So I thought it would take a couple of minutes just to reflect on that particular question. And I don't have a PowerPoint. Oh, I have one slide. Wait, don't put the slide up there yet, because as a trial lawyer, you learn if there's a slide up, everybody looks at the slide and doesn't pay any attention to the speaker. So there you go. Now we're back. Thanks. So how is it that this program's been able to continue for 40 years? I think 3 factors I'd like to focus on. One has been the consistent support from leadership. I've been in this position for 20 years, and I've worked under 4 presidents and 3 interim presidents. And each one of them has been incredibly supportive of the program. So that's number one. I've worked with 3 rectors, and each of them has been incredibly supportive of the program. So you need consistent support from the top if a program's going to work for 40 years. Second factor, it's the people on the ground who travel both to Missouri and here to South Africa. And they have to have positive experiences. And I think with rare exceptions, almost everyone who's come from the University of Missouri to UWC has gone home enriched and excited and in a better position than when they came. And the same holds true for those who have gone from UWC to the University of Missouri. In fact, I remember one person, and he's not in the room right now, but I'm not going to use his name. And he said to me, when I first got here, I didn't really want to go to Missouri and apply for a grant to go there. And I said, why not? He said, Dallas was my favorite TV show on television. Now, those in the audience who laughed are the older people in the audience, because I'm sure some of the younger people have no idea what I'm talking about when I say the television show Dallas. But it was incredibly popular here in South Africa, probably more so than in the United States. And he said, I didn't like the people in Dallas. Why would I want to go and interact with people like that? He had gone twice, and he said the people in Missouri were so incredibly friendly, incredibly welcoming. He couldn't wait to go back. And that's been my experience for travelers going both ways.
They find welcoming host, intellectual curiosity, and the experience is almost always an incredibly positive one. And for some, they've told me, like Tyron, life-changing. And that's been travelers from both ways. The third thing, and this has been, I think, one of the keynotes of the program, it's purposeful travel. It's not academic tourism, it's purposeful travel. So people get grants to come over and do projects at UWC or do projects at the University of Missouri. They're not just going over there to have a fun experience. Not that the people who travel don't have fun, because they almost always do, but there's always a project for them to work on, and we've had incredible outputs. Slide, please. Slide, please. There you go. This just gives you a snapshot of outputs for the last 7 years or last 9 years. 7 years. My math's not so good. And they've been incredibly productive across all academic disciplines. We've produced a lot of articles. We've earned external grants. There have been artistic successes, and capacity development has always been a huge part of this program. So many UWC grad students have gone over to UWC, worked on projects that ultimately helped them come back and complete their PhD. And that's, I think, a huge benefit for UWC, but also an important benefit from the University of Missouri professors who gain during that mentorship. So the faculty piece has always been, since 1986, an important part of this program. And as President Choi talked about, over 1,000 exchanges, that's unbelievable. And I think actually that number may not take into consideration some of the other exchanges that have occurred. So I think the number is actually even higher than that. But I want to talk a little bit about the student exchanges and the student experiences, because as we know, as important as research is, one of our key missions, and in many respects, our most important mission, is preparing students for the world and building the next generation of scholars. And this program, I think, has done a fabulous job in that dimension. And we probably have done more since I spoke at the 2020. I was a new director in the 20th year anniversary, and now it's 20 years later. And we've really concentrated more, I think, in the last 20 years, in part because my program, I got an UMSAMP grant in 2002, to come over to South Africa, visit the law faculty, and with Pierre DeFosse, who was then at UWC, we started a study abroad program, a winter school program at the law faculty, where American students came over. And I've been running that program now since first group of students came in 2004. So that's hundreds of students have come over. And I can tell you, almost to a student, the evaluations say, this has been the highlight of my law school career. This has been so meaningful. And for many of them, they say it's life-changing. And their whole attitude and trajectory, to use Tyron's word, has changed based on that that study abroad experience. It's a bit easier to bring American students over here. It's not that they have the money to do it, but they take out loans. They take out student loans to be able to finance their trip. And we know, unfortunately, most of the vast majority of UWC students don't have that ability. They don't have the money, they can't take out a loan. Nonetheless, we've done really well at giving travel opportunities for UWC students. I want to just highlight a couple of them. Medical school. Since 2012, 30 UWC students have come over for a 6-week research project at the University of Missouri Medical School. And I can say to you that has been life-changing for many of those students. Two of the students came back on Fulbright scholarships. One of the students is a faculty member at UCT. So that's been a great program, great experience for those students. Henry Mitchell Scholars. We've started to focus on bringing graduate students who are working on their PhD over on the Henry Mitchell Scholarship. And part of the students who got their PhDs, they were Henry Mitchell Scholars who came to the University of Missouri. Ivan Regima scholarships. Ivan Regima was a law student who came over on a fellowship. You saw President Choi's slide, Fred White. Fred White gave us $400,000 to bring UWC students over to the law school to get their LLM in dispute resolution. We've now had 24 students get their LLM at the University of Missouri Law School. Those students came back. One of them was the first UWC student to get a clerkship with the Constitutional Court. That's amazing. One of them is now on the law faculty. Several of them are working on their PhDs right now. So Fred White's $400,000 went a long way. And as President Choi said, Fred just this last year gave us $1 million to endow 2 more fellowships. So every year for the rest of time, 2 more students from UWC will be able to go over there and do that. I'm choking up just a little because this program has been so important to me. It's been so important to me personally because I've seen what's happened to people and I've seen how much has changed their lives in a positive way. I'm not going to be here for the 50th. I guarantee you that. But I hope I'm here for the 45th. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been moving, very heartwarming, and impactful and meaningful internationalization across borders. Thank you, colleagues. I'm so proud to be part of the history going forward. Okay, colleagues, my taskmaster as program director is to move you along. So we've now come to a very exciting part of the program where we have 7 participants from UWC and 7 participants from the University of Missouri who will join us via Zoom online and who will talk about the impact of their collaboration. Colleagues, I want to emphasize you have strictly 5 minutes. The timer at 1 minute will be shown. My 2 colleagues at the back will stand up because we are severely running behind schedule. And as a person who has deep respect for people's time, we will be very strict. I've allowed flexibility because thank you, your stories have been amazing and life-changing. So, my UWC colleagues, we'll begin with you since it's very early still in the morning in Missouri. And I think you do all know the order of your presentations. So if we could please have the first participant, Prof. Keister, thank you. 5 minutes, thank you.
So it's difficult to put 10 years in 5 minutes, but I will definitely try. Okay, this is taking a minute of my time. So our question, a simple question, is how do plants perceive and then sense iron? And it might sound like a simple question, but since the 1950s, there's been no protein identified that is responsible for sensing of iron in plants. So the small plant on your right is supposed to show what happens when there's no iron in a system. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is just to show a comparison between animal cells, which is also us as humans, and it shows that there is so many role players known in that system. But when you get to plants, plant cells, it's not that well known and well studied. So this has kept my team up. So what we are doing is we're looking at toxic metals as well as iron to study those to try and identify the role players in that system. Next slide, please. So this was the first picture I took after it took me almost 2 days to fly from Cape Town to Missouri. My very first flight was a horrible flight. I ended up in Puerto Rico, went through there, through the gates, the border gate, but I'm still alive. Next slide, please. So this is Professor David Mendoza's Cosatel's lab. I also worked in Professor Antia Hiese's lab in Schweitzer. But I wanted to show this because his lab is a mess. And there's a rule in science: you don't fix a man's lab. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this was my very first Halloween. And the gentleman on my right is Dr. Veli Tipe. And I read about him when I did my preparation for my trip. And then I made sure I got him when I got there. And we actually also published a couple of papers together on nanoscience. Next slide, please. So I wanted to show Rod that I didn't only play when I was there. I also gave my very first talk. Next slide, please. And this is evidence, Rod. So this is in the Monsanto auditorium, and anybody that go there will know that is it's a daunting auditorium. Next slide, please. So here, I call this Mission Impossible because we were told that we need to build a robot in 14 days. So Sam and Kay came over from Missouri to come and build this robot and blown a lot of bulbs because of the differences in electricity. But at the end of the 14 days, the robot suddenly worked. Okay, I don't have a video of the robot working, but you have to trust me on that. Next slide, please. So I took them up the mountain, and on that day, we got a glorious day. And David was so jealous of this picture because when he went up the mountain, it wasn't this, the weather wasn't looking like this. Next slide, please. So that is Sam and Kay. So these are all the students that traveled from my lab to Missouri. And they went to various labs. I tried to remove the red wine glass from Adelaide, but I couldn't. I couldn't do, I'm not that tech savvy. Next slide, please. These are the outputs currently that we published. And I wanted to add that it's not, this is not the ultimate of our collaboration. I can't do what Rod did. I can't say that here. But I wanted to show that this takes many, many years. And that was one thing I learned when I went there. I always thought that you just write a paper and submit and you get it published. But this took many, many years. Next slide, please. So there's the three of us. I always thought that I am the referee between the two. David is on your left and Antia is on your right. But then I realized that Antia is actually the referee. But these are my collaborators, and we met in 2015 when they came over to South Africa. Next slide, please. I want to thank all the funders. All of us managed to get individual NSF grants through the 10-year period. The Center of Excellence also chipped in and gave us some funding to advance our research. So those papers belongs to them. Next slide, please. And this picture I took myself. This is my pride and joy out of my 2,000 pictures. And I want to thank the University of Missouri for allowing me to do research and to travel that side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to present you today on our partnership that we have with the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of the Western at the University of Missouri, Columbia. Our partnerships have expanded, though, to include the campus on Rolla and also the UMKC campus. So how did this start? Next slide, please. In 2013, I was in the cafeteria on my way to get some coffee, and then I bumped into Leolin Jackson, also waiting for coffee, and he told me about this conference happening upstairs. I joined him, and that's how the collaboration started. I met Peter Pfeiffer and Angela Speck. Peter Pfeiffer and Angela Speck, both from the physics department, and that then ended in me attending the conference, and also Angela and Peter spending another 2 days in our department. The Monday after that, I got an invitation to present at, I think, one of the first Nano Frontiers conferences hosted at the University of Missouri, Columbia. And I presented on our work on renewable energy, etc. Then I also have been fortunate to have been introduced to Paul Maselli, who's currently the department chair there. And he then came to UWC for the next 7 years or so to teach on our MSc Nanophysics program. He's done that every year until he took on the role as department chair, and that was the year before the COVID pandemic hit us. So I had a call last night. He said that he is ending that tenure as department chair. I'm hoping we'll get him back again this year, but definitely next year. To teach in this program. And then what followed after that was my first application to Rod Uphoff, which was successful. And in 2014, I spent a month or a month and a half there working with Paul Maselli in his lab. The major outcome of that it was not just about myself. I then also became the department chair at the time. And then our collaboration expanded to include physics education. Mira from the physics department, she was here about 4 times, I think. Mark Herbert went there. We had Francois Cummings also going there to the electron microscope core. Theo Miller, we had Suchi Gua and Carsten Ulrich also teaching in our nanoscience program. Sylvan, our current HOD, is at the back. He also visited the Rolla campus. Vadim, who is his collaborator on that side, he also came to teach in our nanophysics program. And then last year we had Mostafizur Rahman from UMKC, the School for Computer Engineering. He's working with us at the nano micro manufacturing facility, where our purpose is to look at innovation and take the products to market. And there's many more exchanges that happened. The projects that we were focused on, so initially it started in terms of the silicon work that we did. So this is the history of the department. What we did with Paul Maselli was to use X-ray techniques to actually understand how these materials grow and how we can use them for improved solar cell performances and stability. That project, in a couple of months, we had our first paper ready to submit, and that was accepted in one of the high-impact journals. What followed from that was my next visit in 2019, where I then partnered up with Suchi Gua, and our focus was to look at this new class of material and how we can use that for sustainable technologies and renewable energy technologies specifically. Our expertise at UWC lies in growing these materials. So we have years of expertise in growing the material. What University of Missouri Columbia has is expertise in characterization, understanding the structure and the properties and how these things relate to each other. And bringing that two together led to what we then delivered in the end. Our project now is on generally in 2D materials for sustainable technologies, but in the interest of time, this is one of the highlights of the research. This just followed my Fulbright tenure that I had at the department. So this was an article that was published regarding the new material that we've developed at UWC. And then what we also did during my tenure at Columbia was to also sort of set up a deposition facility in the physics department so they can grow this material there as well. These are just some highlights with regards to, and again, some exciting publications that came from that. Recently, our material was used for a biomedical application, and there's some articles on that. And then in general, the output. So in terms of publications, at least 10 publications that I can remember of, but I'm sure there's much more. What this program helped us to do was to secure funding from external funding to get students to the University of Missouri Columbia. This would include funding from the NRF, from Arms Corps, and some other institutions. And then, so I have all the fundings, and there's some recent publications that I'm listing there. And the future projects, what these projects did is it laid the foundation, but the future projects that we are discussing. So recently, I was also awarded a South African Research Chair Initiative Chair. And University of Missouri Columbia is one of the major collaborators in that, so we will continue with that work. But also University of Missouri Columbia is also unique in that they host a reactor on their campus, which is one of the largest in the country, actually the largest in terms of the power that it can produce. And this is where South Africa needs to develop its skill. And this presents an opportunity with Paul Masali to actually delve into that area. Then the synchrotron facilities at Argonne National Labs, through this collaboration, I gained access to the Argonne National Labs to do some high-end characterization. And because of that, we also have a collaboration with the Diamond Light Source in the UK now. Finally, our project on printed electronics and biosensors, which is mainly associated with the nano micro manufacturing facility. That is a project that we have going on with UMKC. And then in terms of acknowledgements, there's all the funding, but specifically I wish to acknowledge the UWC University of Missouri partnership, and specifically Rod and our directors at UWC for all your support throughout the years. Not just the funding, but also hosting us. And I don't have some pictures but I have quite a few to show, so I decided not to do it now. But thank you so much for your attention.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm not sure if my slides are going to come up. Yes, thank you. So probably from the people that have presented, I may have the least experience in terms of working with colleagues from Missouri, but nonetheless, I feel like my experience has been very, inspiring within the short period, and I think we have achieved quite a bit than what I had expected. So my collaboration, can go the next slide, started in 2021 when I got connected with a colleague through another colleague here in the university from the EMS department, as I had just joined UWC as a senior researcher, and I was developing my research, my niche area, which is around migration and health. And I was looking to getting funding. I was not sure where I could get it from. And this colleague then gave me this lead to say I could try this particular program, and maybe if I'm lucky enough to get it, then that would be a starting point. So luckily, we got that funding, and I've been working with this colleague since 2021. So we were funded from 2021 to 2023, and my colleague, Dr. Wilson Machi, is from the Department of Health Sciences, and his expertise is in community development. So my research focuses on vulnerable communities, and in this specific, I'm looking at migrant communities. And my research started during the COVID-19 time, when migrants, many of them were stranded in countries where they couldn't go back to their home countries. And I just wanted to understand, how are they coping? What is happening with them? There were talks around those times that they couldn't even get a vaccination, like in South Africa, there were all those talks. So I just wanted to see, like, how are they coping in such kind of circumstances? So with, the situation at that particular time, I wasn't so much inclined to traveling to Missouri in those COVID days, but my colleague was brave enough to travel to South Africa. So he came in 2022. And just we've been able to do some publications around this work. And maybe just go back. Just last year, we jointly went for a conference in Lisbon where we did present our work together at the World Congress on Migration, Ethnicity, Race, and Health. And just to give maybe more information around that, one of the outputs from this work was to develop a curriculum on migration and health, which is going to be a course that will be offered within the School of Public Health, here where I'm based, as an elective, but also the university through the EMS faculty, they have developed a master's in migration and development. So we've also been in discussion with them. We would like to offer this as an elective. It's a big program that is also being sponsored by the African Union. So Dr. Maja and I have been working on that. And so the additional outputs that we've gotten through this is also through getting additional funding from the South African Medical Council. In 2024, we wrote a proposal following up on some of the issues that came out from our previous project. One of them being children being left behind by their parents, and parents generally having a difficulty to uphold their families, so they end up sending children either in their countries or some of them live with them. But my concern was, like, what is the health status of these children? How are they accessing healthcare, especially in South Africa, where there's a lot of health xenophobic. So we managed to get that funding, which is continuing until next year. And in addition to that, we also got some funding from the Carnegie African Diaspora Fellowship, where my colleague came in 2024 to, for us to sit and continue with some of the work that was left in terms of actual curriculum development, because we had just started during the first period, but now we're able to develop it further. And then we also got some extra funding for this project, where we're able to train the data collectors together with my colleague from Missouri. And yeah, and now we are busy with the analysis and some of the outputs that you have seen. So for me, in terms of the benefit, I realized that we've been able to produce a lot of papers, because I was having trouble to write out papers, but my colleague from Missouri with his PhD students was able to assist me to produce those papers. And of course, the joint proposal writing as well as curriculum development. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all the attendees, all the executives as well. I'm very grateful to the committees who arranged the association between UWC and Missouri. I'm from Information System. My collaboration with Missouri started in 2018 when I became a coordinator for Masters in E-Logistics, which was a part of HDI grant. We did not have any department of supply chain and logistics at UWC. So we needed a lot of support from external universities. So Missouri was one of those universities that helped us in terms of preparing the program, which was part of HDI grant. So during my collaboration with Missouri, we had a lot of engagement with three campuses, except Rolla. So as you are aware, Missouri is well known in terms of supply chain. I think there were 2 centers of excellence in Columbia and AMSAL. So the colleagues in AMSAL, they helped a lot in terms of teaching online when we started the programs, and it was part of capacity building. Some of the money that we used for the capacity building was coming from the HDI grant. So we had most of our colleagues from Missouri visiting UWC, and in some cases we also had to have seminars and series online where we could capacitate some of our staff in the department in preparation of the launch of the e-logistic program. So the program was actually behind schedule. I joined the UWC in 2018, and the program was supposed to start in 2018. I think DID had also funded the program, and the condition was that we had to start in September. So you can imagine, so it was a lot of work what was involved. So the capabilities there of Missouri were very, very useful. They assisted us in terms of preparation. As you can see on the list there are a lot of specialists that were coming from Missouri, some coming from different areas, but the majority ones were from, in the initial phase, we had AMSAL providing us with professors who were good in logistics, which include Professor Le, and also we had some of them, they are not Jim Campbell. We also had other people who were also junior and staff who assisted us in terms of teaching and coaching as well. So going further, can you go to the next slide? Okay. So going further, after we have identified some of our niche of supply chain, there is a lot of changes that have been done. After 2020, as you are aware, we were coming from COVID as well. So the Department of Western Cape Government, they also approached us to see if we can be part of digitization of the agricultural system, working with smallholder farmers. So that project was also quite huge in terms of involvement. So we were looking on the already expertise that we had in logistics. So we started collaborating with also Missouri in terms of food system. We looked from production until to solving a lot of projects. Some of the projects were involving in supply chain, we call it optimization. Prof. Hayato is skilled in that area. We worked with a lot of smallholder farmers in Western Cape. We also were part of a roadshow where we also trained more than 250 smallholder farmers in the province. So we covered the whole province, all the districts. Some of the students, some of the participants, as you can see at the bottom of the screen there, some they came in our labs. At times we had to travel to the different districts to train those farmers. So the main aim was that after COVID, everything was now online. So we were trying to assist the farmers with access to market, which was very, very important. So in addition to that, we are also working on papers that are published. Currently, we have got a call that was requested by Frontiers, which is at the bottom there, which is looking on AI for sustainable food system, which is actually open now. Some of you, if you are interested in that area, that call is only closing in October. So some of the colleagues in Missouri, I'm the chief editor. There are also some of the editors and reviewer of that journal, which is part of Frontiers. So in terms of the team, which is that big, it's an interdisciplinary team because, as you are aware, food system is so complex. We have got issues of environment, agriculture as being the main affected by environment. It is also the main contributors to environmental damage. So we have got people from environment, people from soil science. So it's a big team that is working together. So we are currently also looking on digital twins for sustainable agriculture as well. So there are a lot of collaboration that is going on. we normally have also exchange of student supervision, which is also happening between the three campuses. Thank you, and running out of time.
Can I have my slides? I only have 3, so it should be quick. So I first of all just want to thank the collaboration for the funding, because I was very lucky and I got funded in 2 rounds and extended as well, and actually funded at the time when it's a very exciting period in terms of digitalization in health in general. So my collaborators were Prof. Tokac, first of all from the School of Nursing, the College of Nursing in St. Louis, and then Prof. Knu Lee from Sinclair School of Nursing in Columbia. So the first project that we collaborated on was myself and Prof. Tokac. He was looking for somebody who was interested in collaborating in artificial intelligence and big data, which we know is a big challenge for us in general. So we agreed to collaborate, and we established a collaboration with a public hospital in KwaZulu-Natal to look at the electronic health record. And what we were aiming to do was to look to see if we could develop algorithms integrated into the electronic health records to predict readmissions. And you can see from the little algorithm there, the idea was that it will work a bit like a traffic light system that will flag people at risk, and then there will be a care action onto that. And Prof. Tokac came to visit us. I didn't have the opportunity during this round to go to Missouri, and it was quite interesting. When we were at Gray's Hospital, the first round of data we looked at, the biggest predictor of readmission was one of the doctors. So we had to do additional work and exclude some people in the analysis. But we managed to do 4 papers out of that collaboration, and that collaboration is still ongoing. And we got 4 additional papers in process at the moment. And based on this work, we actually got funded one of 8 projects in South Africa by the Melinda Gates Foundation on catalyzing equitable AI. And that project is just wrapping up at the moment, looking at the integration of artificial intelligence in electronic health records. The other thing, the last paper there is actually not on the project, but one of the things that I think was a wonderful opportunity for us coming out of this collaboration was capacity development in statistical methods. So Professor Tokac, even at this moment, we're meeting, in fact, that when he wakes up today, he's mentoring some of our interns in the use of R. So this collaboration is ongoing. The second one was around virtual reality and augmented reality. And this collaboration was with Knu and Professor Lee from St. Clair. And we had an opportunity to go to Missouri, which was very exciting. My 2 colleagues at the back, Dr. Hoffman and Ms. Peterson. And you can see us there, this is us with the Department of Architects, where they also did collaboration. So what they did in Missouri was that the School of Nursing collaborated with the engineering department, and they developed a little scenario that you can see there, which is a virtual reality scenario to train nurses in an emergency situation. But if you look at it, you can see that the emergency trolley is blue. And in fact, they call it a crash cart in America, where in South Africa, it's red, and it's called an emergency trolley. So the first thing we did, in fact, when we met with Knu and them, we went visiting to the engineering department, we went to the medical school simulation lab, and we had a discussion about the integration of artificial intelligence in high-fidelity training mannequins. At that stage, the mannequin was hallucinating, so they weren't widely using it. But and they had the most fantastic lab where they were modeling task trainers for nursing students and medical students to practice. They actually had an artist who had a medical background who was developing these models for training, which was quite amazing. But once we had seen all the work, what we did was, and my colleagues was probably primarily doing that, we decolonized the scenario. So we transcribed all the language in it. It was an open source application. We made the voices South African. We changed the emergency trolley. And then we tested it in South Africa in a pilot, and then we have retested it again now with 3rd and 2nd year students. And I believe that people saw some of the simulation yesterday in the tour, and we are busy integrating and working with Prof. Padmana Bununi about how we can integrate this into our curriculum. And based on this, we were successful in our collaboration to get additional funding to develop additional material for midwifery. So I just want to actually thank again and say this for both these collaborations, they're still ongoing. They're actually people we talk regularly with every week. We were just chatting to Knu the Friday when we were submitting a grant. But it also, similar to one of the other speakers, it's been the foundation for me to also get a SARCHI grant. So I've just been appointed as a SARCHI chair, and these two streams are based, the work here is flowing from the work that's done from this initial collaboration. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just waiting for my presentation. I'm Keegan Pokpas from the Department of Chemistry. I've titled my presentation today, The Road to the Nanovault Analytics Lab. At the moment, I don't have my own research group. Professor Baker is the director or co-director of my research group at the moment. And in future, I'd like to have my own. And I believe that that's intrinsically tied to this program. So I've tried to keep my presentation, the journey so far, and hopefully where we would end up one day. So this journey is a 10-year journey that started in 2015 for me. At the time, this program was reserved for staff exchanges, unless you received one of the prestigious fellowships that Professor Apphoff mentioned before. And I remember we applied for this, and I was a PhD student at the time, and we were rejected first. And then there was discussions, and I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but eventually they approved the research exchange for this program. And I remember thinking for the trip that I am determined to prove that they gave it to the right person. If I'm going to be the first non-staff member on the exchange, then I wanted to make a success of it. And at the time, I didn't think about it at the time, but I actually also thought that I wanted to show a first world country what a third world country can do. And I think that's actually been my motto for research going forward. Let's prove to everyone what we can do and how we can do it in an African context. The collaboration then started in 2016, where I traveled for about 4.5 months to the University of Missouri to work with the Baker Research Group, which is a research group that focused on green synthesis of nanoparticles. So looking at milder conditions to create nanomaterials. And I remember going there, and it was my first international trip, my first solo trip, the first time I stayed on my own. And I remember at the time, I house sat for Professor Apphoff for part of the visit. And I stayed in my room all the time so that I don't dirty the rest of the house, etc. And Professor Pretorius mentioned driving on the opposite side of the road for the first time. And they all tell you driving is fine. It's when you need to turn for the first time that you forget to turn for us into the right side of the road. And I almost knocked into a car that day. But I think it taught me perseverance, but also resilience going forward. Since then, this trip was supposed to be for training on nanomaterial synthesis, and then the integration of that into my research, which is in paper-based microfluidics. So at the time, we looked at using oxocarbons, which are cyclic carbon structures, to be able to synthesize gold nanoparticles at room temperature, something that's generally done at elevated temperatures or using harsh chemicals. And so at the time, we managed to use these oxocarbons to create good quality nanomaterials. And then my research was how do we infuse those into porous cellulose matrix so that we can create low-cost, cheap sensing devices. And at the time, I applied it to metal contamination detection in wastewater. At the moment, I'm one of the leading people in South Africa that's working on paper-based microfluidics, and I attribute that to partly or in part to this program. Since then, outside of research, this collaboration has gone on for a long time. I've been appointed as an editorial board member on an international journal because of this collaboration. I was a referee on Professor Baker's 10-year application. He was a referee on my professor application as well. And we keep in contact for the last 10 years. So it's my longest lasting collaboration. Since then, we've developed that further where we've sent students on student exchanges. One of the PhD students traveled to the Baker Group, where they looked at light-mediated synthesis, so using light as the driver to create nanomaterials, and then came back and applied that in their postdoc, in their PhD research. Since then, that formed the basis of our postdoctoral research. So she's brought back the skills that she's learned and is now applying it in our labs as well. I'm happy that Professor Patrick is here because the other two collaborations that we've got going on with the University of Missouri are in collaboration with her. So she's a well-known environmental chemist in South Africa, and it's an area of research that I'm trying to expand into. So we've got two projects that are ongoing at the moment. One is to degrade persistent organic pollutants in water using a hydrodynamic cavitation system. And the other one is in collaboration with Professor Ofei, which was mentioned earlier, looking at trying to remove metal contaminants that are leached off from batteries into wastewater systems. So I'd like to just thank the leadership of both institutions, and I'd like to specifically thank Professor Uphoff. I think he's been almost like a bit of a mentor to me throughout the years, very helpful, always willing to offer assistance. And I don't think I'd be here without this program. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Fiona Muller, and I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities. I don't have any slides, and it's not because Arts and Humanities is low tech, it's just that I am low tech. So before I get into the detail of the exchanges that the Faculty of Arts and Humanities has benefited from through the UMSAP program, I'd like to apologize for arriving here late and not being part of the earlier proceedings. But I actually was hosting a tribute at our faculty today for the late poet, Diana Ferris. And Diana Ferris was an exceptional person, and she's the kind of person who I think could only have emerged at an institution like the University of the Western Cape. She was a poet who read her poem, I've Come to Take You Home. She actually read it in the French Parliament, and her poem was part of the, impacted the change in French law that allowed the remains of the Khoi woman, Sarah Baartman, allowed her remains to be repatriated to South Africa. So the point I'm making is that arts and humanities has impact sometimes in the most unexpected ways. And I'd like to thank Rod Uphoff for recognizing the value of arts and humanities. So I'm here today to represent both myself, but also my faculty. And so I've only been in a faculty leadership position for about just over 3 years. And so my experience of the UMSAP program, it doesn't extend as far back as some of the other colleagues here. It goes back only 3 years, but actually we've done quite a lot in those 3 years. So Rod, for example, has always had a lot of time for our faculty, Arts and Humanities. He's come to do sort of personal information sessions on the UMSAP program. And through the information sessions, we've had a number of very interesting exchanges. So the first one I'd like to mention is the exchange of Professor Russell Kashula. Professor Russell Kashula is the director of our new center, and it's called the African Center for Applied Research in Forensic Linguistics, ACAFL. And Prof. Kashula has been very interested in giving the new center sort of both a national and an international profile. And so the UMSAP program has been a part of that. Prof. Kashula has entered into a partnership with Prof. Matthew Gordon at the University of Missouri. And Prof. Matthew Gordon actually works on accents and how accents are perceived in American society. And so these two collaborators have embarked on a comparative study of how accents and dialects, as well as idiolects, are perceived and received in courtrooms within the USA and South Africa. And they are working on an article or a chapter together. Then another exchange that we have benefited from is someone in our Department of Library and Information Science, Dr. Moira Mabuyazara. And she was hosted by the School of Information Science and Learning Technologies. And she's been working most closely with Prof. Dudenhofer. And they've been working on an empirical research paper titled The Integration of Generative AI in the US and South African Academic Libraries. And the data collection for this particular publication will involve academic librarians at both institutions. And Dr. Mabuyazara is really very, very complimentary about the welcome that she received from Prof. Dudenhofer. Then last year, one of our students also benefited from a mobility. So Joshua Adams received the Henry Mitchell Scholarship in 2025. He's a master's in linguistics student. And he certainly has benefited from the experience and the exposure that he gained at the University of Missouri. And in fact, we've asked him to do a presentation at a workshop for our other postgraduate students, just to talk to them about the benefits of international exposure. And so finally, I see I've got a time out there, and in the 30 seconds remaining, I will say that it may not look like it. So where I come from, the matchmakers usually are old aunties. But in this case, Rod Uphoff was an amazing matchmaker. He matched me up with Prof. Megan Moore of the School of Languages and Literatures at the University of Missouri, and I'm an African literature scholar. She's a French medievalist. He matched us up, and we have produced this amazing edited volume that is with the publishers for copy editing. It's called the Routledge History of Love in World Literature and Culture. So thank you, Rod, and thank you to the UMSAP program.
Thank you to all our UWC participants. We now move on to the University of Missouri online participants who've been patiently waiting. But as we've mentioned, we have the first two, Dr. Alina and Dr. Karan, who are here in person, and you have strictly 2.5 and 2.5. To the online participants, because you're not in person, when it is 1 minute, I will announce 1 minute, and when it is time out, I will announce time out. Thank you for bearing with me. Please welcome.
Fine, all right. Hello, good afternoon, and good morning to all my colleagues in Missouri. I am Dr. Alina Hlapak. I am an associate professor in College of Education at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, and I'm here with my lovely partner, research and teaching partner for the last 5 years, Dr. Karen Collette from University of the Western Cape.
I just want to say good afternoon and good morning to everyone. And it's lovely to be here. We're very privileged to have been participants in this award, and we hope what we've got to share with you will be inspirational.
Thank you. I'm also, since the last year, an UMSAP committee member, and I'm also an AMSEL Global Fellow. I'm here actually for the 3rd time, and I always feel like home. Thank you so much for your warmth and hospitality, and also for all the what are the proteas flowers, which I'm obsessed with. We also shared the love for botanical garden and art together. So Our partnership has started in 2021 when Dr. Colette sent an email to at the time, my dean, looking for a partner. So I responded immediately, we connected, and we share our interests in social justice, in teacher development, and participatory action research, and global education. So we thought it would be wonderful to collaborate on developing a course on virtual exchange, and it is COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning. And we have developed 4 of those so far. We are now on the 5th iteration. So we are working, I'm here to actually work together with Dr. Karen Colette on our 5th iteration, but also to continue to work on our research and service and do presentations in College of Education. And so we decided to apply for UMSEP in 2021. We received the funds. I think this was, for me, academically, was one of the most rewarding experiences. I've been working at AMSL for 18 years, and I can say I'm also an international faculty. I'm originally from Romania. I've been in the United States for 26 years, but I can definitely say this was the most impactful experience in my life. And thank you so much, Professor Uphoff, and also Dr. Umesh Bawa for all the support throughout the years, and of course, Dr. Singh for allowing me to present here today. And then, yeah.
I think I've got 2 minutes. Hey, Alina. So we usually used to doing a sister act, and I just wanted to pick up and say that the reason why we're together, and this has been a good partnership, is we're really excited about the focus of our research, which is into how we enable students to have access to global opportunities around internationalizing the curriculum. And COIL exposes us to one of those possibilities, so no student can be left behind. And Alina's here this time that we hope to present in the faculty, we hope to present in the university. We've asked for opportunities to share this with other colleagues, how easily it can be done, but you have to learn around your design skills. And linked to, I think, Prof, you mentioned about Prof. Balfour, UMSEP has lasted longer than most marriages. I just want to say it's also been the catalyst for some marriages. And I wanted to mention again Professor Owen van der Berg, who I think is one of South Africa's more successful exports to the US. And he was an amazing catalyst in this whole process as well. And it was wonderful when I went there last, I was actually able to meet with him and his wife. So that was great.
So we wanted to start this virtual exchange because we wanted to impact our students and global competencies and research skills, which we hope we did that, looking of the post-summative assessments and our research. We have been really productive. We have worked, so the last 5 years, we published every year, and we had articles and chapters. We presented nationally, internationally. We are doing workshops and webinars. We actually presented together in Brazil a couple of years ago. So we are very fortunate. We have become great friends, and we are hosting each other now, so which is wonderful.
Yeah, I think what's exciting about this visit now is we're busy working with international colleagues that are part of the State University of New York and other COIL experts on developing a strategy for internationalization of the curriculum in our institutions. So if we work in both our institutions, I think it'll just grow the space.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Could we have our online participants on display, please? And if we could have Prof. Wyckoff go first. Thank you.
Sure. So, first of all, I want to thank the organizers for this. This is a great opportunity. I have some slides just that I can keep myself on point. But I want to note that this really came about in part because when I became the chair of the Pharmacology and Pharmaceutical Sciences Department in 2020, that was during COVID. and I started having conversations with Dr. Uphoff about how we could foment collaboration between the schools of pharmacy here at UMKC and the School of Pharmacy at UWC. So we decided that one way to do this is to get students involved as quickly as possible, because students have both the sustained energy as well as the ideas to try to really create a new set of collaborations. So 2020 was not an auspicious time to start doing exchanges between UWC and UMKC School of Pharmacy, in part because nothing was moving. But it was a great time to start planning. And what in collaboration with Dr. Uphoff we came up with was the idea to bring several students to UMKC's, utilizing the resource of Diastole, which is the apartments that you see over here that were actually where we host our collaborations from. So we brought 4 students in 2022 to UMKC, including students from Dr. Agaya, who I've been collaborating with now since this point. We also brought in a student to Dr. Gutile's lab. Dr. Gutile is another faculty member at School of Pharmacy. And then in 2024, Nicole Kuhler came to my lab in part to talk about pharmacogenomics, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then my student, Jordan Sante, went to UWC in 2025. So we have had even in a very short period of time, we've managed to do a significant number of exchanges which have fomented lasting collaborations and partnerships. So in pharmacogenomics, Nicole Kuhler came to my lab, and I met her when I was at UWC. And one of the things we immediately recognized was the shared challenges between Missouri and South Africa when we start thinking about pharmacogenomics. Pharmacogenomics is the science of how people respond differently to medications because of the genetic variation that they have. So when you think about the United States, we have a population which has quite a lot of divergence from a genetic perspective. That's also true in South Africa. And when you look at Missouri, specifically, the health outcome differences across the state of Missouri are wide. When you think about the rural health challenges that we have in the state of Missouri, that's a well-known issue. You can think about that as being something that we also have as an implementation issue from a pharmacogenomics perspective. How do you implement a new science, a new way of helping treat folks with a limited set of resources in a population that's spread out, diverse, and has a multitude of differences in how they're experiencing healthcare, from urban centers to rural centers? So when we thought about that, when Nicole was here, she actually got a chance to meet with both our pharmacogenomics folks, myself and Dr. She also went and met with folks at Children's Mercy Hospital, which is literally across the street from where we are on Hospital Hill in Kansas City, as well as folks from the VA, where they've successfully implemented pharmacogenomics at a very high level in the US. All of that is now building to not just one, but we're working on figuring out a series of pharmacogenomics meetings between Missouri and South Africa starting in 2027. So we're planning for that now. We've got collaborators across the state in Missouri and across South Africa. From a drug development perspective, I've been working with Dr. Agaya now for several years. We've got several publications off of that. Hong-Min Sun, who's at the University of Missouri, is also a partner on this, and this is really looking at the importance and impact of drug-resistant microbial infections, something that impacts the populations across South Africa and Missouri. And as part of our earliest cohort at the School of Pharmacy, we had Johann Breitenbach, who came to University of Missouri, Kansas City, and that actually led to a lasting partnership with Dr. Mark Patterson, who's a researcher here. And they now have shared papers and ongoing research collaborations, in part about the challenges for continuity of care, as well as AI adoptions across South Africa. And now they're taking that survey and they're moving it into the state of Missouri from an educational and health outcomes perspective. At UMKC, I'm really proud to host Tursula Jefta, who is a Fulbright scholar and is now working with undergraduate and PharmD students at the UMKC School of Pharmacy. She's looking at overcoming the blood-brain barrier in drug delivery. And if I had more time, I could probably give you an hour-long talk about all the work that she's done, but I don't. So I'll stop there. But I wanted to say this partnership is not just about the work, it's about the people. Because the lasting impact of allowing people to see the problems that exist in different contexts and in different lights is what allows us to shape those challenges and move forward and get the funding that we need in order to do our work. And I am so proud of all the students who we've worked with that have been able to do that. And I wanted to thank Dr. Uphoff specifically, as well as the administration from both schools that have really fostered this partnership for so many years and kept it safe and secure. So thank you all.
Thank you. If we could have Prof. Taylor go, please. Prof. Taylor. I will signal at 1 minute left and then time out. Thank you.
Gotcha. I almost said C in my Spanish. Well, it's good to see everybody. Getting up at 4 a.m. This is lunchtime for me, so this is wonderful to be here. Also, as the son of a law professor, I've never heard law professor Uphoff and matchmaker in the same sentence. So I'm going to have to ask my father about that. That's certainly an interesting characterization there, which I love it. And I understand it. Matthew Taylor, associate professor in psychological sciences at UM St. Louis, and also associate dean of arts and sciences now in the School of Social Work and Psychological Brain Sciences. I think Professor Belfour really hit the nail on the head. Not just the fact that he mentioned wine, even at 6 a.m. I thought that was a good idea, but the humanism of this endeavor. And this is really where I want to talk about. I'm not going to list off all the things that my colleagues and I have done. I've been involved for 20 years, 2006. I've been involved in some shape or form with colleagues from UWC since 2010. So 16 of my years here have been involved with Nikki Roman, Kelvin Waba, and a host of other colleagues. I'm not even sure how I first got hooked up with the MSAT program. I saw Joel Glassman. It might have been him that put a bug in my ear. Might have been Rod. I really do not remember. But whenever I talk about this, I get really, really excited because I look at it from a scientific standpoint, from a professional development standpoint, but also from a personal standpoint in terms of the growth areas and ways that this has really impacted my life, my children's lives. But also, I'm looking and hearing wonderful work from colleagues around the globe here, which is fascinating. It's even extended to some new relationships we're trying to establish in my lab in Brazil, using some of those approaches we've picked up with this 16-year relationship, moving that forward down to Sao Paulo. So my area of interest is minority mental health, and I'm an existential humanistic guy. So I'm always trying to squeeze every bit of humanistic endeavor out of every encounter I have, whether it's the grocery store, whether it's an Osman spice shop over there at the Clubfontein Road up by Goodwood, where Nikki Roman's mother takes me every time I come into South Africa, or to Gatsby on the hood of somebody's car in a parking lot. So really, our work looks at the big five: death, identity, freedom, isolation, and meaning. How do we capture and better conceptualize those elements of self for people, particularly people from historically marginalized backgrounds? One of the groups that we've studied in my lab has been multiracial individuals in the United States, particularly Black-white. One of the things that attracted me to South Africa, initially working with Kelvin, he brought Nikki Roman in, but after that, it's been Nikki and I in the various permutations, is the colored community is multicultural, multiracial. But the big difference is this notion of space. There are communities, there are neighborhoods, there are cultural frameworks around this group that we really don't have in the United States when it comes to multiracial folks. So a comparison was screaming to happen, and that's kind of what we've looked at: experiences with racism, discrimination, identity development, both at the individual level, but also at the group level, and also how this tied in with at-risk elements for substance use and things of that sort. Personally speaking, it's fascinating. As a mixed race person myself, I've never walked into a room and felt more at home phenotypically than walking into one of our focus groups at Mitchell's Plain. Everybody kind of looked like me. I've never had an experience in 56 years. So that right there washed over me and hit me in a way that was very, very meaningful. This has also parlayed itself into work with colleagues at UMKC, Arif Ahmed, who's been taking students over to South Africa through his health care administration framework to do some coursework there to add a mental health component to that. I teach cross-cultural psychology, so all the trips over there and all the experiences have been woven into my pedagogy from day one. So in short, though, this is really a collaboration. It's a bi-directional relationship. I think I've learned far more from the colleagues there than they have from me. It has been, like I said, life-changing. I like to use this story a lot. The first time I went there, I was with a partner. The second time I went there was with a different person who was my wife at the time. And then my South African colleagues finally told me, "We're so glad you brought this new person. We did not like the original one." I'm like, "You all could have told me that and saved me about 4 years." But it's a funny story because they really are family, and it's more than just a research collaboration. It really is important in all those different layers there. And I look forward to see what happens in the future. And I guess as an administrator, one of the things that's been the most fun to do is to get other people turned on to this program so then they can jump in and do the same thing. We have some wonderful collaborations, and UMSL is probably most like UWC in terms of the student body. So I think that connectivity there is really, really critical and important. And the last thing I'll say, just for Prof. Herman, education is not going anywhere on UMSL's campus. In fact, they're relocated from the South Campus to the North Campus into a brand new building. So I'll take a picture and send it to you in about a year when it's done, but they're going to be in a good space. So that's all I have. I really appreciate the time, and colleagues, it's good to see everyone, and I'll shut it down right now.
Thank you very much. We can have Prof. Das.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Gui middag. Good afternoon to all my colleagues at UWC and all my University of Missouri System colleagues who are attending in person. I hope, or I wish that I could attend in person, but thank you very much for the opportunity to speak remotely. My journey with the UWC cooperation started in 2019 when I got an announcement of the AMSEF collaboration opportunity, some funding for exchange of visits. That was summer, I think June of 2019. I did not really know anybody in person at UWC Computer Science Department. I'm in a Computer Science Department in Missouri University of Science and Technology, Missouri S&T. I was looking at the faculty roster in computer science. Then I found that at that time the department chair was Dr. Antoine Bagula, whose research area matches with mine in terms of sensors, sensing networks, wireless network, communication, and with applications to smart environments, including smart health. So I wrote an email to Professor Bagula expressing my interest to collaborate with him through this AMSEF exchange program and fellowship. To my surprise, within 24 hours, he responded that, "Professor Das, I have read many of your papers, and it will be an honor to collaborate with you." So from that day onwards in 2019 summer, I think we started exchanging information. We got the funding that particular year. Our colleague, Dr. Franca Obo Ikonobe, in Missouri S&T, who was liaison of the AMSEF team, or the organizing team, and Dr. Rod Hophoff, who was very supportive. Although he said that we don't have enough financial support, we can give you half of the money that you have requested. Is that enough for you to exchange visits? We agreed. But then our plan was to exchange visit starting from summer of 2020, when the COVID started. So there was a late start. We could not exchange visit. Professor Bagula visited me in 2021 October for 2 weeks, my lab at Missouri S&T. And in between, actually, we were exchanging a lot of information, possible collaboration on this thing, that thing. The proposal that we wrote that got funded is distributed machine learning and AI for healthcare 4.0 that we said, mimicking Industry 4.0. And our particular application domain was cancer patients. That could be breast cancer or any other type of cancer patients in South Africa, as well as globally, the health issues related to cancer. And since Professor Bagula visited me in 2021, October, we started investigating research. He got integrated very well on our campus. Many of my students and postdocs also interacted with him. We arranged for a seminar talk by him. And the next year, 2022, there was a system delegation visit to UWC, where Belgium, the Ghent University was also involved. So this tripartite relationship that we have been hearing from the morning. And that was part of the thing that actually gave us a lot of incentive. And hello?
Minute.
Okay.
1
So a lot of things happened since then. We have written papers together in flagship conferences, published 3 joint papers, 3 book chapters. Several journal papers are in the proceedings right now in the review stage. But after that collaboration, also a couple of years ago, we had started a new collaboration with Dr. Retha Christine Kotze in the School of Pharmacy. She visited me 2 years ago. One of our students also visited me last year, Zora Dalvi. We have written a paper which is under review right now on the CVD risk assessment in South Africa. So that's the journey we have started. One of Dr. Bagula's student, Patrick Shello, also visited me a couple of years ago. So what I would say that this AMSEF relationship that we have started gave a lot of opportunities for research and cultural exchange. And I hope it will continue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We now have a shared presentation, Prof. Song and Prof. Lee. Thank you. 5 minutes. Prof. Song, Prof. Lee, are you online?
Oh, yeah. So this is JJ Lee, and I'm professor in Earth Environmental Sciences at UMKC. So Professor Austin Jokonia actually summarized very well about our the project and exchange in 2023. So that is the during that the COVID time. And then the issue was that the food security, especially for the marginal communities. And so we quickly formed a team with the Dr. Sejun Song in computer sciences at MS Visual SNT and Professor Austin Jokonia. And so since he explained all, I quickly finished that my part of thought. And I think that the benefits of this the program is that we can establish that more like a long-term the research project and also education. So although we visited there in 2023, still all the discussion and also this scientific research is still ongoing. And especially that what I learned is it's not only between those the 2 partnerships, because there are some other collaborators within the system. So through that communication with the Professor Jokonia, we got to learn that the other collaborators and also, for example, like Professor Haitao Lee, he's an expert in the supply chain system. So we somehow got involved a couple of the new proposal development as well since then. So I think that this exchange program between that University Major System and also UWC really benefits that our academic faculty and also the students more like a long term, not only for this 1 year exchange, but also for the next 5-10 years. And so, yeah, that's what I learned and also I really enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you. We can have Prof. Teti. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Just want to make sure. Can you see my screen? See my slides?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. I wish I could be there with you in South Africa. I miss it very much. I am a professor of public health and an associate dean in the Honors College at the University of Missouri in Columbia. And my research program has centered around improving the lives of people living with HIV. And I have collaborated with Dr. Brian Van Wyck, who is also a professor of public health at UWC, really for the last 10 years or so. So one thing I wanted to say was that before coming to the University of Missouri, I had done other work internationally in some other locations abroad. And I never really had very positive experiences, mostly because once I would get to this location, I worked in some other locations in Africa, in other places, I would be very isolated and I wasn't part of a team, and the research just wound up not being very productive. So I was very reluctant to kind of engage in additional collaborations, and a good colleague of mine, Dr. Enid Schatz, had done a lot of work with this program and had really encouraged me and said, you should work with UWC, it'll be different. And I'm just glad I listened to her, because it absolutely was. So when I first met Brian, I was leading a study abroad course in South Africa, and I took a break from working with the students to visit him at the School of Public Health. And it immediately became clear that we shared the same research passions, but we had different areas of expertise. So he quantitative, he was a numbers guy, and me qualitative. I was a stories person. So we joined forces to improve the quality of life of youth with HIV in South Africa by learning how to better meet their needs around medication adherence, doing some mixed method studies. And actually, medication adherence for people with HIV was a significant public health issue in South Africa, in the US. Like other people have mentioned, even though the places are very different, the problems existed in both locations. And over the last 10 years, we worked on several research projects, multiple research trainings, and many paper collaborations. And I've completed 2 trips to South Africa, and Dr. Van Wyck's been to the US twice. And like others have noted, unfortunately, during COVID, our work was interrupted, but we were lucky enough to be able to keep things going. A major aspect of our collaboration centered on training scholars in South Africa to use a method that I had a lot of experience with, that people there wanted to learn more about, called PhotoVoice. And in brief, PhotoVoice is a community engaged research method where people use images to identify and talk about their needs on their own and in groups, and use their images to influence policy and care. So as shown on the screen, we've had quite a few publications in this area, which have importantly incorporated the voices of young people in programs and policies meant to support them. So some of these papers are mine and Brian's, but importantly, his students and his colleagues have used these trainings to go on and use this method and use it very well. So seeing all this makes me really proud. And like others have noted throughout our collaboration, Brian and I also not only worked together, we became great friends, and we both truly appreciate the opportunity to do this work together and are very thankful to those of you in the room who made this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we have our last participant, Prof. Fidalgo. Thank you.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speaking today in this event and share my experience of this partnership and how it impacted my work here at MISU. So I'm an associate professor in civil and environmental engineering at the University of Missouri, Columbia. And my general area of work is drinking water quality and treatment. And in particular, I work to develop new material and processes for the removal of emerging contaminants, and also for sensing them at really low levels in water, in natural water, with emphasis in drinking water and protecting human health. And in this work, I use a lot of tools coming from nanoscience and nanomaterials to come up with these new materials and processes. So I joined MISU in 2014, and it was really soon after I joined the university when I learned about the program. And I had the chance to meet with Dr. Leslie Petrick, who was at the moment visiting Columbia, and we talk about our research interests. And as you know, there is not engineering program in the UWC, but a lot of the problems that we try to solve are really very interdisciplinary. And we found that a lot of the objectives of our research was really complementary. We could join forces to get to a better place. So I applied to the program, and I received funding in 2015 and to visit through the South African Education Program. And so that project included the investigation of the transformation of a type of nanoparticles, the carbon-based nanoparticles, in particular graphene and carbon dots, and how those particles suffered transformation and changes in their properties as they reach natural water environments, and what were the implications of those changes for the fate, transport, and overall impact of nanotechnologies, and especially as they are applied to water treatment. So my collaborators in this project were Dr. Leslie Petrick, and from the nanoscience group, and she invited Dr. Ed Poole at the time, Medical and Bioscience program, to complement the health impact size. So I ended up visiting South Africa in April 2017. And in that trip, I had a chance to have meet many different researchers. I have great conversations, both in chemistry and medical science, visit the labs. And I think the highlight of the visit was my participation in a class that Dr. Petrick was teaching at the moment, in nanoscience. And again, I was able to provide my engineering perspective, and I participated and delivered several lectures to a class of over 40 students, and we even designed and ran a nanomaterial synthesis lab for the class, which is really a lot of fun for me, particularly. So after the visit, the collaboration continues. I hosted Dr. Petrick's students, and a couple of years later, I received a postdoctoral researcher, Dr. Lategan, who's currently part of UWC. And actually, this line of collaboration really grew, and we continue investigating different nanomaterials. And as part of kind of stemming from this first effort, we really look and expanded to a lot of different materials and processes that I developed in my lab at MISU. So I can say academically, the collaboration has delivered significant results. We had several publications together, several theses completed, and funding. But I would like to highlight at the personal level how rewarding this opportunity was. First, the fact that I could and I teach, that I could had the opportunity to teach, how much I enjoy it, and spending the time getting to know the students at UWC and learning about different cultural environment that I'm used to, and how we appreciate through that experience some of the positive aspects of the American classroom, but also we take back important ideas for improvement. It was such an immense pleasure to get to know my South African colleagues. It was my first experience in Africa, and I was really unsure of what to expect. But their kindness and friendliness far exceeded all expectations. And really, everybody during my visit was so welcoming that I left with this highest impression of the country, their natural beauty, and the people. So just to wrap up, I would like to thank for the opportunity that the program gave me to grow in the academic side, on the personal side, and I'm really excited about the opportunities. I'm looking forward to the future for more work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. So my time shows 16:05. We'll have a 10-minute coffee break. We'll be back here at 5:15. We will now have a 30-minute round. 4:15, apologies. Yes, I'm working in advance. We'll now have a 30-minute roundtable after this so that we